I think that is the meeting being recorded. So yeah, welcome everybody. I think there's a few more people. We're expecting a few more people. But in the meantime, I think seeing as we have quite a lot to cover in the next 90 minutes or so, I'll just get a quick start and people will be able to catch up as we go along. So welcome to this webinar. This webinar is presenting the results and outcomes of the RDA TIGER project, which some of you may be familiar with, some of you may have been participating in the project in the last 3 years. So essentially, this project wrapped up at the end of 2025, a long month ago. We just wanted to sort of package up some of the work we did and especially some of the outputs and the resources that we put together that we think will be of use to the RDA community and to the wider sort of data sharing, data reuse, data support community as well. So over the next 90 minutes or so, we'll just be presenting an overview of the project, what we did and some of the things, and providing links and things for your reuse. So my name is Ryan O'Connor. So I was working on the project for the last 2 and a bit years. So I was the senior facilitator on the project. And I'll be presenting a little bit today, but I'll be joined by a few more of my colleagues as well. So just to run quickly through the agenda and to give a brief introduction. So first we'll be looking at the project in a nutshell and some of the outcomes, just a very high level look at the outcomes and our achievements. Then I'll be handing that section over to my colleague Alexandra, who is the project coordinator. I will then be giving a few minutes on the overall service, the support structure model, so the services we provided to the community, and just give an introduction to these and hopefully providing some interesting material on that. Then I'll be going in a bit more detail onto the facilitation service, which I was the lead of for the project's duration. I'll be handing over then to my colleague Nina Grau from CoData, and she'll be presenting on the landscape and engagement service that we had. And then I'll hand over to my colleagues Wim Hugo and Simon Soldner from Dance in the Netherlands, and they will be presenting the RDA knowledge base service, which was this very impressive suite of tools that the project put together to sort of make the outputs of the RDA community more searchable, indexable, findable, and they'll present all that information to you. And then towards the end of the session, I'll be taking over the reins again and looking at in a bit more detail at this large scale landscape analysis that we've conducted in the final months and final sort of year of the project, really, just on the impact overall of RDA on the EOSC landscape and the kind of the wider European landscape. And then towards the end, I'll hand back over to my colleague Alexandra to present some of the Cascade grant projects. So these are some of the projects that we provided funding to throughout the life cycle of the Tiger project. And then we'll hopefully have a few more minutes towards the end for any of your questions. In the meantime, if you have any questions that you think we might be able to answer sort of via text, or maybe you just want to register them for the end, just please feel free to use the chat function and fire your questions in there. There's some indicative timings on the left-hand side here in terms of minutes. We'll try to stick to that, but we have a few minutes to play with, so we'll motor on and see how we get on. First of all, then, I will hand over to my colleague Alexandra, who will just give a few minutes introduction to the Tiger project in general, for those of you who aren't familiar with it. Alex?
Thanks, Ryan. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Looking at the list of participants, I think most of you already know of RDA TIGER and were a part of it in some way. So I will keep this introduction very short. RDA TIGER was a 3-year European Commission funded project. And our objective was to provide various types of support services to RDA working groups that concretely align, harmonize, and standardize open science developments and technologies globally. We had a particular focus on working groups that were strategically aligned with the EOSC ecosystem, given that this was a European Commission funded project. And we succeeded in that through a carefully constructed application and evaluation process where our supported working groups were able to demonstrate this alignment and this strategic sort of relationship with the European ecosystem, while also, of course, aligning globally with the relevant priorities. the types of support that we provided were in kind, and my colleagues will discuss this more in depth in a minute. So we provided facilitation, communications, outward support, and landscape and engagement services. We provided small grants for the engagement of external experts to further refine and enrich RDA working group outputs. We provided cascade grants, so those were larger projects for a total of 150,000 euro. We supported 7 of those, and I'll talk more about them in a minute again. And we developed the RDA knowledge base, and as Ryan said, Wim and Simone will later take you through that as well. Our partners, this project was coordinated by RDA Europe, the European Office of the Research Data Alliance, and we had CoData, DANS, Netherlands eScience Center as our lovely partners. Next slide, please. A few numbers, a few achievements. We supported the development of 13 new statements of work for RDA working groups. We supported 31 group sessions in plenaries. We provided, I think we have 8, but it might actually be 7 adoption grants, either for the adoption of RDA outputs or for work enabling the further adoption of RDA outputs. And we provided a number of travel grants for attendees to join the IDW in Brisbane last October. 20 RDA working groups received facilitation support. 3 groups received dedicated communication support, 7 cascade grants, and external expert grants. Next slide, please. Now, my colleagues will go into more detail about the specific resources that are more in relation to the services that we provided, but I wanted to spend a quick minute to take you over the second policy brief that we published late last year, coming out of the RDA TIGER project. And this is the policy brief to the EOSC partnership. It draws from the large-scale landscape analysis and mapping of RDA outputs to EOSC, from work carried out at the sort of RDA global level from the Secretariat on the RDA for Policy series, and also the first policy brief that did an initial mapping, and the overall work of the supported RDA TIGER supported working groups. And out of this, we came up with 6 recommendations for the EOSC. Very briefly, the first recommendation was that the EOSC governance should be supporting initiatives should leverage the existing solutions, the wealth of existing solutions within the RDA. The second recommendation was that the GORC international model provides a key sort of solution and output to, again, many related developments in Europe. The third policy recommendation relates to national PEAT policies that should be pursued across Europe. The fourth recommendation, again, stresses that the EOSC Federation should continue to leverage the Research Data Alliance around work on interoperability at various levels. The fifth recommendation, again, suggests a continued engagement with the Research Data Alliance for cross-fertilization with international initiatives, so linking the European developments with the global landscape. And finally, as you will see further on in my colleagues' presentations, we have concluded that European Commission-funded project partners should be encouraged to use RDA's open-to-all infrastructure for the development of solutions, and also as a vehicle for global cooperation. There is a QR code. This is just a very brief snapshot of the policy brief. You can browse this at your own leisure, and we will also be putting links in the chat. Next slide, please. A very, very quick look on our feedback that we received from our supported working groups and supported across all the various services. As you can see, we were overwhelmed by the positive reception of the work in the past 3 years. We are delighted to see that it was needed and appreciated, and that it was useful for the community. We are glad that it was impactful for the community, and this is also why we're here, because we produced a number of resources that can be useful even though the project has ended. I believe now we go into the website. So my colleagues will show you the various documents and resources that will hopefully be useful to you. But I wanted to very quickly show you where everything lives, so where you can find everything. This is the RDA Tiger webpage, and this is where absolutely everything is. We are still working on the navigation, so we've been trying to find a better way to structure everything, so to make it more user friendly. But if you keep scrolling, please. You can see our Zenodo community is linked up at the top, the yellow button. So all the outputs, all the resources, all the presentations, data sets, everything that we have done is available on Zenodo. And then if you just keep scrolling. So here in this main page, everything that my colleagues will be talking about, the knowledge base, our Cascade Grant projects, the background and how Tiger has aligned with the EOSC ecosystem, some more details into how we started, our objectives, the work plan, a list of all our supported working groups with their outputs and the relevant adoption stories where we have them, and the types of support received by Tiger are all there. As I mentioned, adoption stories. So we have at the moment, I think, 6 or 7 adoption stories that came out with the support of Tiger, either through our Cascade grantees or through us sort of engaging with the adopters and creating these stories for our supported working groups to showcase to the community the value of real life implementation of those outputs. More information on our cross-fertilization webinars, the deliverables, and useful resources. And then on the right-hand side, these are additional pages that you can also find more information on. Maybe just a quick scroll through, right, so people can see the structure. Yeah, thank you. The knowledge base and supporting information, our cascading grant projects, the EOSC, and relevant deliverables to the EOSC ecosystem, then the objectives and the work plan that Ryan will go into in a minute. The long, long, long list of our supported working groups. Yeah, exactly. And you can click on them and find out more information about it, about each group. Our adoption stories, and we are still working on the adoption stories. This isn't complete, so I think there are 2 or 3 more to come. Webinars and their recordings. And this is in addition to Zenodo, all the deliverables are here. And other publications and resources that we developed outside what was sort of mandated from our grant agreement. And that's me. I will now hand over to Ryan so we can start getting into the in-depth presentation of the resources. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Alex. I was going to get the slides up to date again. So I think my colleagues have been providing a copy of these slides in the chat, but if anyone was late there, that I'm sure they'll be able to add them back in again. So all the links and everything that are being displayed on screen are obviously hyperlinked in these materials. But as Alex was saying, if you go to that RDA Tiger main page, then essentially all the information related to the project is available there in some form or another. So yeah, so I said at the beginning, the point of this webinar today was just to kind of give a more, not so much an update on how we did what we did, but actually what we produced in the project. So I'm going to run very briefly through the support structure model. This may be relevant for some people here who might be thinking about how they structure potential proposals or support services to in their institutions or projects or whatever. But I was going to run briefly through it, but this isn't the main sort of focus of what we want to talk about today. So as Alex was saying here, we do one of the things we produced as as one of the outputs of the project really is the support structure. So we were providing support for this in this project in Tiger for RDA working groups, but we think this can be sort of replicated, not replicated, but sort of adopted and adapted by other projects if needs be. So we structured it in such a way that we have these in terms of the internal structure for the project was through these 6 work packages on management and communications, which is pretty standard for a European Commission funded project. And we also had these 4 separate sections on landscape and engagement, on output services, on the facilitation service, and then on the kind of general service quality and control. And that was how we looked at it internally. Then when we looked at actually how these services were and how the various aspects of the support were put in place for the working groups who were supporting, we kind of structured it more in the sense of the natural cycle of RDA working groups. So for those of you who don't know, RDA working groups are kind of started by the community with the overall the RDA structured RDA sort of hierarchy and organization doesn't have any say, doesn't sort of determine the different aspects or different topics that these groups focus on. It's very much a kind of bottom up structure. So people in the community come together and start these groups. So we wanted to provide the support. The support we wanted to provide was to mirror that natural sort of life cycle that these groups have. So we have the working group start, which is at the very beginning, putting together the initial ideas for the group, getting the ideas down on paper, refining them, defining the target audience, bringing people into the group, essentially getting new members, then moving on to the work period when the group is actually focusing on the work it's doing, is producing its deliverables or obtaining whatever information it obtains, and then the finalization period where the group is producing its outputs. So typically in RDA working groups, they're required to stick to a kind of an 18-month time span, and at the end to produce what we call an RDA endorsed recommendation of some sort at the end of that 18-month life cycle. So essentially, we wanted to provide these 4 different types of support: the landscape and engagement, communications, output support, and facilitation, to provide different aspects of support throughout that 18-month period. Um, and this is all documented in various different deliverables, which we had on screen a second ago. These various services are sort of very well documented and how they're set out and how they're refined as you go along in those deliverables. Um, yeah, as I said, I'm just going to repeating here actually what Alex said already. So as we saw on screen, we can at the back of the RDA the RDA page on the RDA Tiger page on the RDA website, we have a list of deliverables, and there's a QR code there linking to the Zenodo community, which has all the documents that we've produced and all the documentation that we've produced, deliverables and other things on that community. So there's a QR code there, but as we showed there, it's easy to navigate to it via the RDA Tiger webpage. So yeah, so I'm just going to check the time. So I'm going to spend maybe a couple of minutes just going through the facilitation service. This is something that we kind of was out of the 4 in-kind support services, was really the kind of one that took the most, required the most effort. It was the kind of core service in that sense, and it was the one that had the most direct contact with the 20 or so RDA working groups that we supported throughout the project's life cycle. So I just wanted to take a few minutes because to present this and kind of how we approached what we did, and then to focus on the outputs of what we did. So we'd have produced kind of quite a bit of guidance and documentation that will hopefully be used to others within the RDA community, and also we've kind of structured them in such a way that these guidances and documents will be adaptable outside the RDA context. So essentially what we were doing with this facilitation service was supporting groups from the beginning, if they needed support right from the beginning, right to the very end of their life cycle. So essentially what we're trying to do, so as we were saying, these RDA working groups are kind of very much community started, or how would I describe that sort of member. The motivation for them is very much membership based. So it is on required of the RDA working group members and their co-chairs to provide a lot of the sort of organizational support and sort of communication support and that type of thing. So essentially what we're doing, the facilitation service, was to try and take some of that organizational burden from co-chairs and group members to make the groups run more efficiently, and to essentially allow co-chairs and members to focus more on the content of what the group is focusing on. So yeah, so we have a few taglines here. We just wanted to lower the barrier to starting working group activity to help guide RDA working groups through that sort of initial startup phase, to make their working group phase when the group is active more efficient and more provide more visibility for their work, and then to to provide some more increased sort of impact of their working group, their recommendations and outputs towards the end. Um, and this is the kind of one of the mottos we had for the service really was to facilitate, not lead. So to make it as easy as possible for the groups to function, but we weren't there to sort of take place of co-chairs or to sort of steer the group in any particular direction. So there's just a quick overview of the different types of support and different tasks and activities that we provided throughout the life cycles of the groups. So it's in at the starting out phase, it was very much about the support was very much about getting producing these statements of work, which is essentially the document the charter that sets out the working group's ambitions and its plans. Also, that at this stage, at the early stage, was about identifying potential co-chairs and working group members and trying to disseminate information about the group and encourage people to join the group, to join RDA if they're not members already, also to join the group. And we also had a service to provide a landscape analysis to give the group a wider, a richer sense of where the group sits in whatever topic it's focused on. Then during the kind of active work plan or the active phase of the group, we're just very much sort of providing support to the regular working group meetings and making sure that the group is sort of running efficiently. Everyone has all the information they need to have. Everyone has all the documentation that they need to have in the right place and that type of thing, and just making sure that things kind of tick over and we maintain momentum. And then towards the end, it was very much about guiding the groups through this the writing process of putting together RDA recommendations, guiding them through the community review period, and then about making sure that these recommendations so that get in front of the right people and go to the right places. So maximizing the impact of the outputs. Um, and again, just repeating, sorry, but some of what Alex said here already, we had supported 20 groups throughout the life cycle of the project, including 12 of those we were getting the groups off the ground. The other 8 were sort of in the process or already sort of had started up by the time we provided the support to them. We got very good very positive feedback, very good constructive feedback, and very positive feedback in general throughout the life cycle of the project of the Tiger project, which was good to see, and it just kind of underlined to us that the project was really sort of a necessary thing for the RDA community, and we produced quite a lot of additional collateral materials as well, which I'll go into a bit more detail next. So yeah, the service model itself, as I said earlier, all the services we produced are we designed them in such a way that obviously they're very much kind of RDA Tiger focused, but we documented them in such a way that we would hope that they might be taken up elsewhere by other projects, other initiatives, either sort of to support RDA groups or in further afield. So we have these 3 main deliverables of the facilitation service. Deliverables 1, 2, and 3 about the kind of defining the initial service, evaluating it the first time around, and then the final evaluation and update of the service plan. Yeah, as I said here, we just wanted to have this adaptable outside RDA working groups and the RDA community, but obviously it is very much focused on RDA working groups. So we have had some success in the uptake of the facilitation service model. So just a few examples of this. So we have had quite a lot of engagement with our colleagues in RDA US, and they launched during 2024 and 2025 the Tigris program, which was a kind of partner program really to the Tiger program, and they were providing support to working groups who had specific focuses on US related data issues, and also to provide sort of engagement with groups who were sitting outside the RDA structure, but who wanted to engage with the RDA community. There was a Tigers facilitation program was kind of modeled very much on the Tiger program. We had a lot of useful interactions and useful input from both Robert Quick and Robert Ping from University of Indianapolis, I think. During the facilitation service. We've also provided the facilitation service as a one of the aspects where the RDA community or the RDA Foundation is going to engage with the private sector. This is detailed here in this deliverable that's in the middle. This which was published by the RDA Foundation last year. The facilitation service and facilitation is one of the ways we're going to hopefully engage with the private sector moving forward. And we also had quite a lot of conversations with other initiatives within Europe. So this is detailed here, or kind of example. There's an example is here on the right hand side was conversations that we had from RDA at RDA Europe with the base NFDI initiative, which is based in Germany, about this, what we can learn from each other in terms of this, what we call soft infrastructure. So these facilitation services and types of activities we provided to working groups or similar initiatives. Another thing that we did, I'm just going to check on the time, I'll be very fast, was we provided not only did we want to get the groups themselves sort of functioning more efficiently, we wanted to make those connections either between RDA working groups who are focused on common interests, or making the connections between these groups and sort of outside initiatives. So at the end of 2024 and the end of 2025 as well, we held two cross-fertilization webinar series, essentially kind of bringing groups together who were working on complementary, not so much complementary subjects, but who were looking at different aspects of data sharing problems in the same way. Trying to bring those, trying to get all those people in the same room together and to discuss various ways that they can sort of build on each other's efforts and make connections sort of beyond their work, and maybe make further connections in terms of the personnel across different working groups. These webinars were really successful, and it was mostly the input from the actual groups themselves, which made them so successful. But I think they were really well received, and they ran quite efficiently, which was great. And these are all available on the RDA Europe YouTube channel. There's a hyperlink there, and the QR code there if you have YouTube on your phone or your camera open, you can get it there. These are all definitely worth a listen if you're interested in any of these specific topics, which you can see here, such as mappings, metadata standards, semantic interoperability, etc. Yeah, so as I mentioned there earlier, we do have, as well as the services that we provided, which has now ended, the facilitation service, we did produce quite a lot of documentation that we would hope would make the effort that we put into the service to defining it at the very beginning and throughout the life cycle of the Tiger project, make it sort of impactful beyond the end of the project, provide some sort of legacy. So we don't, I think this is a common issue with a lot of projects, whether European funded or otherwise, that they do great work while the funding is going on, but then it's the next step towards making that impact beyond the end of the project is an issue. So this is one of the ways we approach this in terms of sustainability, was to produce these various different bits of guidances here. These are the three main ones that we produced around the facilitation service. We also actually produced a fourth one, which I was reminded of there in the earlier slide. We produced a welcome pack, which is a very brief document that allows for new working groups who are setting up within RDA. That's linked from the RDA Tiger webpage, but I forgot to hyperlink it there. So the three main ones I have on screen here is the first one here on the left hand side is the facilitation RDA working group facilitation best practice handbook. So this is just as some sort of tools and tips for facilitators or co-chairs or just people working within RDA working groups, just insights on how they can make the groups run more efficiently, essentially. Even if your title isn't officially a facilitator, if you're in a task with operating or managing or assisting in the running of a RDA working group, I think this guide would be of use to you. The one in the center then is more of just the facilitation tips and tool guides. This is a briefer guide, which is whereas the first one is very much geared towards RDA working groups. This is something that's geared that we think will be more applicable to organizations outside RDA. So people who are any sort of collaborative work group. So kind of task groups, task forces, lab groups, anything like that. If you're tasked with sort of running the operation of any type of group where you're trying to bring people together to focus on a specific plan, this is some sort of light touch guidance and tips and tools there that would be useful. And then the final thing here, which is not technically sort of part of the facilitation service, but it is still useful, we think, was that I put together this brief 10 tips for running a selection committee. So one of the things that we ran during the project to facilitate the open calls that we ran was a selection committee, which required a lot of coordination with people, selection committee members from outside RDA, who we're very grateful to their time and their expertise and their efforts in contributing to the evaluation of all the applications we received. But this is just a very brief document here that if you are looking tasked with running a selection committee, we hope this very short guide would be of use to you as a couple of I say a couple 10 things that might be of use there. Oh, sorry, I just clicked on the hyperlink. So that's the tools guide. And the next slide is, yeah, I think I'm handing over to Nina. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I can
Perfect.
see.
Thanks, Nina.
So thank you everybody for joining. So I will present the landscape and engagement work package, which is divided in different type of activities. And I just present a few of them. And so the first one is the landscape engagement service, which aims to foster the discoverability and the visibility of the RDA working group activities. There is also the landscape analysis service, which is part include of the landscape engagement service package, but it's aimed to provide an overview and of the integration of the RDA working groups topic within the open science landscape. And finally, I would like to present to you the landscape monitoring report activity, which aims to provide a baseline for monitoring and engagement within the open science landscape. So just like to remember that for the work package 3, the motto is to avoid the fragmentation of open science efforts and to prevent silos. So for that, the objective is to provide a background of knowledge of the open science landscape, for example, the EOSC or the fair data-related activities. Next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So for the first domain, the landscape engagement service of the work package 3, this is a collaborative effort with different other work packages, which is like the facilitation and the communication. So different strategies have been developed to enhance the discoverability and the visibility of the working group, and have been characterized according to the work package stages. Here you can see some of them from the start of the working group, from the working period, and to the final period of the working group. So according to that, we provide different activities, as I mentioned, also depending of the services, the facilitation, the communication, and the landscape analysis service. So if you want to have further details, 2 deliverables have been published, and you can have more detail on the strategy and the different activities that have been developed for this domain of activity. So regarding the KPI of the overall landscape and engagement service, we define the number of participants in the RDA TIGER working group, supported working group, who not have been earlier RDA members. So we calculate all the new RDA members of the RDA TIGER supported working groups. So we have in total 219 new RDA members, which is really more than expected. And we also evaluate the efficiency of the engagement between the group who have been supported from the scratch or in the middle of their working activities. And we notice that there is more efficient engagement for a group that's have the support of the RDA TIGER from the start of their activities. So you can still have more information on this deliverable, the 6.5, which gather all the evaluation is to provide an overview of the integration of the RDA working group topic within the open science landscape. So for that, the service is under request from the RDA working group. And due to an increase of the demand during the final year of the project, we developed a generic methodology for the landscaping. So you can have access to this methodology on the final report D3.5. So in total, we had 7 working groups that requested service. We shared 4 data sets. And provides 4 reports, and 3 are still in progress. So you can also have access to the data sets collected that collect all the resources initiative during all the project on the 3.5 data sets publication. Thank you. And so for the final domain of activity of the landscape and engagement work package, the landscape monitoring report. So the objective of this one is to provide a baseline for monitoring and engaging within the open science landscape. So the methodology was developed at the beginning of the first year of the RDA TIGER project and is described on the first report 3.1. So the methodology is the following: is we select different approach of screening that need to be analyzed. So domain specific, agnostic, specific and geographic approach. And then after that, we follow a concentric approach that is applied by looking at the RDA environment activities, the RDA TIGER partners, the EOSC, and the international ecosystem. So in the results, we have like the one report that have been published to define and to set the scene of the open science landscape. We've made 3 updates: the 3.4, the MS10, and the 3.5. And we published one dataset with more than 200 resources that have been listed all along the project, the 3.5 landscape analysis datasets. And I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nina. I think that was really, really interesting. And yeah, so I think now next thing I'll be handing over to Simon and Vim.
Thanks, Ryan. So my name is Simon Salner. I'll be presenting the RDA knowledge base, or RDA KB for short. And my colleague Vim is also here today to answer any questions. He is the main technical architect behind the knowledge base. So to get started, the main goal here really is of the knowledge base is to ensure the quality, usefulness, maintenance, and sustainability of RDA working group outputs, as I believe Alex mentioned earlier. And we do this mainly through the knowledge base, which is a portfolio of various applications that you see below. And you can access it through kb-rda.org there in the link. So next slide. Just to very briefly give a background here of the motivations for the knowledge base. So essentially, history resulted in RDA-related resources being spread in multiple sources as a result of this the bottom-up nature of the RDA. And what now is the case is that Zenodo is preferred, but there are also resources spread in other parts of the web, notably the RDA website, of course, which is the main repository for these outputs. So next slide. What we have done here is essentially to consolidate these resources in a database which we refer to as the RDA graph. And this essentially contains a disambiguated copy of each of these resources, and also adds some RDA-specific vocabulary so that you can more easily find it and index it. Next slide. So attached to this are essentially 3 main use cases. And the first one is the RDA publisher, which helps users publish RDA-related resources together with RDA-related metadata and vocabularies. And then we have the discovery, which is essentially the user interface of the knowledge base, where you can also find supplementary materials and support materials for working groups. And then finally, the annotator, which is an extension or browser extension that allows users to annotate any web-based materials to make it more easily findable by other users. So next slide. So to first go through the discovery very quickly. Next slide. So this is essentially an application that offers search and discovery tools, but also some additional features. It has this dashboard, which is the main welcome page, let's say, of the website, which contains various widgets and tools that can easily be configured. And then it also in the lower corner, you see the availability of a support and help feature. So that contains the support materials that I mentioned earlier. That are also available in the Tiger Sonoda community as well. And the help feature there is essentially a help desk for users to request to make a service request. And then the next slide. So just briefly, these widgets or facets are essentially very customizable, able to allow users to quickly filter various aspects such as subjects or individuals and so on, allowing them to quickly sort of drill down on topics of interest. And then the next one. Then the other view, the same resources that you can filter via the dashboard are then also available in the search view and vice versa. And this essentially contains more details about the search results. And each of these results can then be clicked on to view more details and to essentially link to the source of the resource as well. So making it very easy to retrieve any topic of interest, essentially. Then the next slide. Yeah, this is very briefly a quick snapshot of the details view, which also displays additional attributes, including any metadata of interest and of course the source or sources, plural. Then quickly on to the annotator. Next slide. So this, as I mentioned, is a browser extension available for Chromium-based or Firefox browsers. And it adds a layer on top of your browser, which allows you to, once you select any text, to make an annotation for other users to find via the menu bar that you see on the corner there. Next slide. And once you have selected a piece of text, as you see here, this allows you to go and tag that information with various vocabularies associated to the RDA and also other sort of more specific vocabularies created by working groups of the RDA. The GORC, as I believe we mentioned earlier, is one of those. And then next slide. Here you can see how this works by quickly by using a type ahead feature. You can quickly add a number of different vocabularies and metadata to make the resource more findable to other users. Next slide. And I should also mention before moving on that all of these annotations are then saved to the RDA graph, so you can find them back at the discovery that I mentioned earlier. Then finally, the publisher is a way to publish RDA-related materials, mostly for working groups, via a sort of coordinated, consolidated interface that also allows you to add RDA-specific vocabularies and other important metadata in a consistent way. So it really is a way to make the process of publishing easier for working groups, but also to make the resulting publications more let's say, aligned in terms of how the use of metadata and so forth. So you can essentially do the entire process of publishing through this application. Next one. And just to wrap up, there's a great introduction by my colleague Curtis at the RDA, which you can see here if you're interested. That really tells you everything you need to know and to get started with the knowledge base. If you have any comments or questions, please let us know. And also maybe good to mention that we have several feature updates and data improvements and so forth coming up. So keep a lookout for those. We'll let you know when those become available through the RDA website that was mentioned earlier. And yeah, look forward to hearing your thoughts.
Great. Thanks, Simon. And thanks, Vim, as well, for all the work you did on this as well, and Lawrence and others at TANS. I also wanted to add to the knowledge base information. There we held a couple of sort of launch webinars and sort of active workshops as well during the year. And I think these were recorded, and these are all available on the RDA YouTube channel I just linked there earlier. I'm sure one of my colleagues will fire it into the chat there again if people are interested. Yeah, so in the interest of time, I think we're doing actually okay on time. But again, I'm sure some of you might have questions for some of the presenters so far, or for myself, on the various aspects we've asked. So please keep them. We will have space towards the end. Or as I said, please feel free to put them into the chat if you want. So the next sort of big output, or the next sort of big aspect of work that we did with Tiger and is this landscape analysis on the value of RDA outputs to EOSC. So from the things we've kind of explained so far on the facilitation service, just the kind of general services that we provided, in-kind services and support services, the knowledge base, facilitation support, etc. That was all very much focused on sort of improving the quality of RDA work and improving the sort of internal mechanisms and improving the quality of life essentially for the RDA community from their engagements with RDA. Obviously, these things are sort of time bound in the sense that the project ends at a certain point, so we can't provide facilitation support forever or landscape analysis support forever, but we have tried to make the resources we developed extendable and applicable beyond the end of the project. And obviously the knowledge base as well is a really sort of significant development that we'll hopefully be able to pick up in the guise of other projects and develop further. Again, as Simone said, there's still work ongoing on that, which is great to see. But that's all very much sort of intern, like sort of within the RDA tent, I guess. So with this piece of work, then the landscape analysis on the value of RDA outputs to EOSC, we wanted to look sort of take the view from looking at from the RDA community looking outside, and to see where where all the efforts and all the expertise and experience of RDA groups and the work that they do, how that is applicable sort of beyond the RDA. Obviously, as the RDA Tiger project was a European Commission funded project, our sort of we do have responsibility to our funder in that sense, in the European Commission, and so in this sort of piece of work we wanted to do was to do a really kind of in-depth analysis on how the work that RDA groups has done, working groups and interest groups, and the Tiger project itself, how that has impacted or can potentially have further impact on the European landscape, on the European Open Science Cloud, the EOSC, and just the kind of wider European landscape as well. So this is very much a kind of, as I said, kind of from the outside, from the inside of RDA looking out. So I'll just maybe take a few minutes just to present this report. There's quite a few, I'll be showing a few kind of hyperlinks and things like that as well. There'll be a few QR codes on screen. And once I've kind of ran through presented the report, I'll take you to this another platform and just show you we have made a couple of visualizations of some of the work we've done, some of the analysis we conducted. So I'll just run briefly through that as well. And you'll have all of access to that, and hopefully you might get a sense of the impact that RDA does in general and how it's impacting the wider European and global landscape. So with this report, what we decided, we kind of made a request to our funder about halfway through the project to say, look, we're doing a lot of work internally and we're making things really improving the quality of life essentially for the RDA community, and we're going to be doing so and developing that in the second half of the project. But at the midpoint of around the midpoint of the project, we thought about making a bit more of a significant expression or articulation of how the work done within RDA is having an impact beyond the RDA environment. So for that, we looked at kind of these four aspects of the European of EOSC and the European community. This isn't exhaustive by any means. This is the four areas we chose. So what we wanted to do was look at the impact of RDA groups, working groups, and interest groups on the EOSC SRIA implementation challenges. So that the SRIA is this EOSC Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda. So this is a very kind of foundational document on how the European the EOSC Open Science Cloud is to develop over the next course of the next few years. So we wanted to look at how groups have impacted or can potentially impact areas of concern with that. We also looked at the European Commission funded projects and the kind of wider Horizon Europe funding landscape, and about how the kind of various overlapping concerns between RDA groups and this funding program. We also looked in detail then at the European research infrastructure environment. So SREs and ERICs. We provided an analysis of RDA TIGER groups and how they are supporting the aspects of the ERICs and SREs. And then as well, finally, we looked at RDA working groups and interest groups and their impacts and their overlapping sort of concerns, and with aspects that were expressed in the European Union national open science policies. So I'll go into a bit more detail with that as well. So essentially, we wanted to kind of highlight the value of not just the RDA Tiger project itself, but the wider RDA community and its impact on the European landscape. So yeah, as I said, we just kind of looked at these in from four different aspects. The first of these was looking at the RDA working groups and their impact on the Strategic Research Innovation Agenda, or the SRIA. Specifically here, what we looked at was the 7 implementation challenges. So I've all listed them out here on the left-hand side in this graphic. So these 7 were identifiers, metadata ontologies, fair metrics and certification, AAI, or authentication and authorization infrastructure, and user environments, resource provider environments, and EOSC interoperability framework. And essentially, we looked at each of these 7 implementation challenges in detail, and also at these, I think it was 69 RDA working groups that we ended up mapping, and looking at the various overlapping concerns there. So we're looking at the outputs of groups that have produced outputs, and just the sort of scope and focus of other groups that hadn't produced outputs yet, and where they overlapped with these implementation challenges. These have all been mapped on extensively on this Kumu platform. So those hyperlinks you can see here, the big blue one and this smaller white one here, will take you to the mapping on Kumu. So I'll show these on screen in a few minutes. Just kind of, these probably aren't the easiest thing to navigate in your phone, but I'll show them on screen in a few minutes. But we want to make this mapping and this analysis available to the wider community as well. The second aspect then we looked at was, as I said, the Horizon Europe funding landscape. So we're looking at these current projects that are underway via the Infra-EOSC funding mechanism and the ERA, Open Science, European Research Area Open Science funding program, and via looking at the various kind of criteria of these funding calls and how they overlap with those 69 RDA working groups I mentioned earlier. We kind of drew a mapping between all these different projects and specific mapping criteria, and we were able to kind of draw some conclusions there in terms of the aspects of the different areas of focus of RDA working groups and how they impact these certain areas of expressed in these funding calls. Again, we did something similar as I said, for the EOSC research infrastructure landscape. So in this sense, we narrowed the focus here on just groups, RDA working groups supported by RDA Tiger. So we narrowed this down to this is around 20 or so, actually 23, I think, in total, groups that we supported throughout the project, and then looked at these different thematic concerns of and discipline area concerns of these European Research Infrastructure Consortium or consortia, and as you can see here, provided quite a detailed mapping on where there's overlap between groups and how they map onto these different aspects. And then finally, we looked in detail at the outputs and concerns of RDA working group and interest groups on the European the European Union 27 member countries and their national open science policies and the various aspects of concern. So what we did here was we took to make that mapping between RDA groups focus and these aspects of the European open science policies. What we did was kind of to bridge that divide, we used the Foster taxonomy. As my colleague Connie Clare at RDA Foundation took on this report, this section of the report, and did an absolutely really great job of this. It's really, really rich, really detailed information. I'll show it on screen there in a few minutes. So essentially with looking at these four areas, and we also kind of from the report at large, we drew out a few sort of high level recommendations. We really wanted to kind of articulate the value that the group RDA community has, specifically the groups, that the value that their efforts and their expertise and their knowledge have on and the impact that this has on the wider European landscape. So what I'll do now, I'll just go back to a slide, and I'm going to exit out here, and I'm going to navigate over to Kumu. So just as you can see here, I was just showing some of the graphics on screen. Is useful in a way. It's nice to see them, but really we made these public just so people can actually access them. So what I'll do first here is this was the first of those four mapping areas that I looked at. So as I was saying here, these 69 RDA working group areas, and looking at how they map on to EOSC Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda implementation challenges. We have the 7 implementation challenges here. So there's a couple of ways of navigating this. So I think maybe let's look at, say, for instance, if you're specifically interested in fair metrics and certification, you can just highlight this. You can scroll to the right here and just focus down on this, and it just brings up the dozen or so, maybe less than, maybe around 10 groups or so that we determined had overlapping concern with this. You can zoom in if you can expand the menu bar here on the right hand side, and we've highlighted fair metrics and certification. It just gives a brief overview from the 3A document of what this implementation challenge is concerned with, and then links to the 3A itself. We can expand the focus then, or you can kind of contract the focus to look just at this fair metrics certification. You can expand it to the groups itself just by these arrows here on the right hand side. Expand it again to get a link between the groups that are linked to fair metrics and certification and the other implementation challenges that they're linked with, and just to see how these things map all together. And you can keep expanding the focus up till you get right again to the top. Another way of looking at this, I'll just mention here as well, so any of the groups you click on around the outer circle, so in this case we clicked on the software source code identification working group. It has a very brief one-line summary of what the group is focused on and a link to the group itself, or you can just double click on the icon. That'll take you directly to the group on the website. But another way of navigating this map, say if you're a co-chair or a member of a specific group, or just interested in what the group is doing, you can, so let's go, fair sharing group is quite a impactful group. So you can just, in the search bar here at the top, just type in there, fair sharing. It will take you to it. You can, again, just click down the focus, just to focus on that group. As I said there earlier, you can double click and it'll take you directly to the group, or you can just expand the focus and see what areas of the 3A that we have determined it sort of maps onto. Yeah, so that's kind of the main output of this section that we were looking at. So this really is kind of, we've articulated in more detail in the report that I linked there at the top in the slides earlier, that report itself that we used to produce these visualizations is about, I think it's over 100 pages long, but it's kind of divided in three sections, so it is kind of more digestible in that we have a shorter, a longer, and a richer version of the report in that document. But this is just one way we wanted to sort of spell out some of the impacts that the RDA groups are having and the RDA community at large is having on these various different aspects. The other thing I thought was worth flagging up here was this, as I mentioned, this mapping we did to the national open science policies. And there's some, so if you this QR code here will take you to it, or if you can navigate straight from directly from the report this mapping was done in support of. And it will take you to this Kumu visualization. Again, sometimes Kumu isn't the most intuitive thing to navigate, but I'll just take you through some of the aspects of it here. So there's some detail here on the left-hand side, just so how we, what for this specific analysis, what was done and how these connections were articulated. This, as I said, my colleague Connie Clare did a absolutely really amazing job of this. Is really kind of rich analysis, and we're hoping to build on this in various other projects, hopefully sometime in the next year or next couple of years maybe. But there's some information here on how to navigate the map itself, but then it's always best to kind of see it done in person. So as I said, this was done using the kind of analysis was done using the Foster taxonomy as a kind of bridge between the different open science policies and RDA groups at large. So in this case, let's maybe focus on Denmark and its policy. That you can see here that it has links to all these different aspects of the Foster taxonomy. These aspects are color coded, and there's a guide to, so if there's a kind of full coverage or comprehensive coverage, which is yellow, full is green, etc., etc. This kind of color coded in that way, and we can click on one of the links themselves, and it will take you to this. So this is the link the random one I clicked on here was from the Denmark Open Science Policy to the ethics aspect of the taxonomy, and it just gives a bit more detail on how what aspect of the policy was made it, or sort of defined that mapping to that aspect of the Foster Open Science taxonomy, and there's some quotes and further information about it. And that information is available sort of across all different aspects of the mapping. And then another way of looking at it, I think, to get the links to the different groups. So I've clicked on, let's say, open standards here, and this is a link from the open standards from the aspect of the Foster Open Science taxonomy, and it links to the various different RDA working and interest groups here, and defining that connection, and whether there was a recommendation or an output complete, and just a one-line summary of where the group is. And then obviously you can just focus in on, for instance, open standards, and it'll link there, have a list of the RDA working groups and interest groups connected to that aspect, and then defining the links to the different national open science policies then in the different countries where there are links present. Again, this is maybe not on the first view, it's not the most intuitive thing, but it's a really, really rich mapping, and it's a really valuable resource, I think, and we're going to be hopefully building on that in some aspect in future projects. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Yeah, so that is, as I said, now that was a kind of very, very large aspect of the project that took a lot of attention there towards the end of last year. As I said, there's a link, if I go back a few slides, the other direction, there's a link to the full report here on Zenodo. I'm sure I'll be able to put that one of my colleagues will be able to put that link in the chat. As I said, it's quite a long report, but it is split into kind of like an extended executive summary, which is about 5 or 6 pages long, and then further analysis, and then a series of appendices just to give the backup to the analysis, essentially. So it is more digestible than it looks at first glance. But we hope that this report will be help to shape future uh, future ties between RDA and EOSC, and also to make to facilitate that impact, that the groups, all the efforts that goes into these groups, facilitate the further impact of those on the wider European and global community as well. So I think that is the end of this section. So what I might do is, I think, Alex, are you going to come in at this section and maybe just give a quick minute or two, couple of minutes on the Cascade grant projects, and we can, I think then we'll be able to open it up for questions.
Yes.
Alex? Yep.
Thanks, Ryan, and thanks for presenting the vast 100-page landscape analysis so concretely and so succinctly. Thanks for that. Okay, so like Ryan said, I'll now spend a few minutes, just a quick overview of the Cascade grant projects that we funded through RDA TIGER. We funded 7 of them. And we, as I said earlier, we sort of categorized them in 3 different ways. There were Cascade grants aiming at enabling the working groups to refine their results and outputs. There were grants that were straightforward adoption support of RDA outputs, and grants that were working towards enabling further adoption via outreach and other enrichment of work. Ryan, if you could switch to the Cascade Grants webpage, I think that's probably easier. Thank you. Perfect, thank you. So it's the link below those 2 announcements. Yep, there we go. Thank you. Great. So in the first round of Cascade grants, we supported 3 projects. The first one was a grant that was received by the second Cork International Model Working Group. And the intention was to develop an interactive web interface for the model that would enable navigation of thematic subsets, implementation profiles and mappings, and connections with other frameworks, models, principles, and vocabularies. I think it might be good actually if we can demonstrate the tool very quickly. If we can click on the link, if you scroll down to the bottom, Ryan, please, thanks. If you can work your magic to make it work. Yeah, there we go. So this is the interface that was developed for the second Cork working group. And all the links are on the website and the webpage that Ryan showed there with the QR code. You can navigate the interface and the associated outputs. Thanks, Ryan. So that was the first grant that was given by RDA TIGER. The second grant was the developing an advanced and secure environment for data visitation across RDA, or DV for RDA. And that was one of our adoption grants. The FairLiz platform that was developed by Lifetime Omics adopted a number of outputs from the Artificial Intelligence and Data Visitation Working Group, specifically the Guidance for Informed Consent, the AI Bill of Rights, and the Guidance for Ethics Committees Reviewing AI and Data Visitation. There is, again, on this web page, if you scroll down, right, you can see all the outputs that were developed as part of this grant. And there is also an associated adoption story that presents the adoption process, the impact, and the improvements that the grantees made onto the platform based on the adoption of these outputs. Next, we scroll. This one is one of those that we call the adoption enabling grants. And it was the Pro4RS working group that received this grant to continue building on their database of research software policies. They also run outreach and workshops to further support the adoption of their outputs, and they develop some additional documentation. And once again, the outputs are available on this webpage, if you can scroll. There we go, a lot of documents, presentations, The database of software policies is also there in a Google Sheet. Yeah, maybe we show it quickly since we have it. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. So we don't have much time, so I have to scroll through these wonderful projects very quickly. Then we move on to the second round of Cascade grants that RDA TIGER organized. That was another adoption grant, and this was the Enhancing Scholarly Knowledge Graph Interoperability through the SKG IF integration in this open source research information system used at the University of Novi Sad in Serbia. And this grant aimed to enable seamless data exchange, foster open science collaboration, and promote scalable adoption across the European research platforms and institutions. We are preparing an adoption grant an adoption story for this one too. The output that they adopted, the SKGIF, wasn't finalized, but now it is. So now we can publish our adoption story. And again, all the information about the implementation and the impact of this adoption will be in this adoption story, and the links to their outputs to the I think they're GitHub links. They're all there on the page. Next, another adoption grant. This was the Enhancing Machine Actionability of the InfraArt Spectral Library through FAIR mappings and metadata alignments, or FAIR map for art. This grant worked to boost discoverability, reuse, and interoperability of InfraArt datasets by aligning metadata with FAIR principles and RTA standards, also strengthening integration within the EOSC. This project adopted outputs from three working groups, the Data Discovery Paradigms Interest Group, the Research Metadata Schemas Working Group, and the Data Granularity Working Group. They adopted the 10 principles to improve dataset discoverability, the guidelines for publishing structured metadata on the web, and the guidance on data granularity. And once again, the impact, the process, and all of their outputs are linked from this page, as well as the adoption story. And finally, last but not least, the developing an EOSC-compatible national PID strategy, another adoption grant. And this project was delivered through a collaboration between the Ireland's National Open Research Forum, or NORF, and the Ireland's National Research and Education Network, which is also the EOSC mandated organization. And it built on Ireland's existing national PID strategy, and it worked to align it with the EOSC PID policies and the RDA recommendations from the working group, the National PID Strategies Working Group, and also the interest group, I think. So the output was actionable guidance for coordinated and sustainable PID adoption. There is an adoption story again on the way. We should have it uploaded on the website by the end of the week. And all the outputs, all the supporting documentations, and the recommendations are on the website. Sorry, one more. I almost forgot. Building immune digital twins. This is, it was part of our sort of adoption round, and it's more geared towards adoption enabling. It was a project that contributed to a platform that the Building Immune Digital Twins group has been developing. They also received external expert grants to further refine it. The platform is linked at the very bottom of the page. There we go. So maybe we can click on it. There we go. So this is the platform that, if I remember right, it brings together loads of resources from the working group. So a lot to go through again. I think that's everything.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that was it in terms of the Cascade grants.
Thank
So
you.
that the guy or thing I had on screen there is available obviously via the web page on the RDA website. But then there's a hyperlink sorry, QR code there on screen as well if you want to access it on your phone. I think that should be a bit more readable than the Kumu graphs on your phone. Okay, I think that brings us to the end of the presentations. We've been incredibly diligent in terms of time, unless my watch is broken or something. But yeah, so I think yeah, so essentially we can have time. I'm going to stop sharing my. Oh, actually, I'll leave my screen on for a second. So yeah, we're really keen to to hear any questions from you. We have some questions maybe that we would hope maybe kind of rhetorical questions that we might stimulate some responses from yourselves or further questions. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to look at the chat yet, but just have a quick look there now. I don't see any question marks, just some links. I'll stop sharing my screen. Yeah, I invite anybody who might have any questions or comments or, I don't know, anything to say, then please feel free to do so. I've gone over the hour now. I think we had a few more people at the top of the hour, but only natural, I guess people are going to be dropping off. Was there Alex or Nina or Simone? Was there anyone in the chat who might have had a question I missed out on there?
I don't think we had anything in the chat.
Cool.
And we were also crystal clear, so there are no questions.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's no bad thing if there's no questions. I'm sure that, there was a lot of information to digest. I see some of the names here would have been familiar to us from the project, but some of you may have been either maybe new to RDA in general, or new to just their first time hearing about the Tiger project. So if you are new, if you're in the first category, if you are new to RDA in general, I hope this was useful to you in some way. I should have added in there. So a lot of the groups that we supported with Tiger, I think it was over 20 definitely. The vast majority of those are still active. So if I would encourage you to maybe even just look at that list of groups that we had supported. And if you're new to RDA or if you think there's something that you can contribute or you'd like to just hear about with those groups, I would encourage you definitely to just log into the website and to join those groups, and you'll be able to find any information about joining any meetings. It's obviously free to become a member, and you're more than welcome to voluntarily sort of add yourself to groups and to join in where possible. If you have heard of RDA before, or sorry, the Tiger Project, and I'd encourage you to maybe explore some of those links that we put into the slides, and explore some of the links that are available on the Tiger page there. We produced. We obviously did a lot of work. The majority of effort was to keep the groups keep the groups happy essentially, and to do the work we were getting paid to do. But we put quite a lot of effort, especially in the last months of the project, to producing things that will hopefully be of use beyond the end of the project. So there are a lot of resources there that we encourage you to look at them, scan them if they're of use to you and your jobs. Please feel free to use them. If you think they might be of use to anyone else who you know in this area or further afield, please feel free to share with them. The more people who can get the benefit out of this, the work we've done with Tiger, the better. In case, last call for questions, I guess. And if there's not, I guess we can wrap up a bit early and give people a couple of minutes back. Okay, cool. Thanks again, everybody, for joining. Thanks, Simon, Alex, and Nina for your time presenting, and all the work you've done, and Vim as well for all the work you did on the project too. Yeah, I guess we can wrap up then.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very
Bye,
much.
everybody.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.